I still remember the exact smell the night I came back home. Not of my mother's jasmine oil, not of freshly cooked lentils, but of cologne. A man's cologne, sharp and musky, hanging in the hallway of the house I grew up in. I dropped my suitcase by the stairs, my heart thumping strangely fast. Laughter echoed down the corridor. Unfamiliar voices, carefree, like they owned the place. I walked straight to my bedroom, the one with pale lavender curtains and glow-in-the-dark stickers I refused to peel off when I turned 18. Except, when I pushed the door open, it wasn't my room anymore. The curtains were gone. My desk had vanished. Instead, there was a strange couple sitting cross-legged on a bed I didn't recognize, folding laundry. They froze when they saw me. Hi? The woman said, her voice cautious. Can we help you? I couldn't even speak. My parents appeared behind me, my mother clutching her dupatta, my father clearing his throat. We rented out the room, he said flatly, as if announcing the weather. We needed the money. My voice cracked. You rented out my bedroom? You'll find somewhere else, my mother added briskly, like she was shooing away a salesman. That night, I sat in the driveway, suitcase by my side, staring at the dark streetlight shadows on the pavement. My chest burned, not from losing four walls, but from realizing my parents had just evicted me from my own life. And if they thought that would break me forever, they had no idea what I was about to build. Growing up, I was never the favorite child. My brother was the golden boy, the one who scored goals, won prizes, and made the relatives beam. I was the quiet one, scribbling poems in my notebook, daydreaming too much for their liking. Books won't feed you, my father used to say. Learn something practical. I wanted to study literature, to write, maybe even teach. But every conversation about my future turned into a lecture about real jobs. I swallowed my protests, too scared to fight. The final crack came after high school. I'd gotten into a decent university in the city, hours away from home. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd be proud. Instead, my father slammed my acceptance letter on the table. Waste of money. You'll never survive on this nonsense degree. I remember my hands trembling as I stuffed clothes into a suitcase that night. My mother stood in the doorway, not stopping me, just folding her arms. If you leave, she said coldly, don't expect to come back. I cried the entire bus ride to the city, my throat sore, eyes swollen. Alone in a tiny hostel room that smelled of mildew, I unpacked the only comfort I had, my grandmother's worn locket. She had pressed it into my palm before she died, whispering, "A room is just walls. Home is what you build with your own two hands." I clutched that locket until the chain left a red mark on my skin. That night, something inside me hardened. If my parents had no room for me, literally and emotionally, then I'd carve out my own space in this world, even if it meant starting with nothing. The early years were brutal. I worked double shifts, waitressing in the evenings, copy editing manuscripts late into the night. My shoes wore out faster than I could replace them. Some nights, dinner was just stale bread and tea. But with every rejection, every exhausted collapse onto my narrow bed, I repeated my grandmother's words. Home is what you build. One night, after correcting typos in yet another half-finished manuscript, I sent a bold email to the publishing house. I can do more than fix grammar. Give me one chance to edit a full book. To my shock, the editor-in-chief replied the next morning. Come see me. Her name was Maya Kapoor, sharp-eyed, silver-haired, a woman whose presence filled the room like sunlight. She read my scribbled notes, then leaned back in her leather chair. You've got fire, she said simply. I'll mentor you. But you'll have to fight for every inch. And fight I did. I learned to navigate deadlines, demanding authors, impossible revisions. I poured myself into stories until my eyes blurred. Slowly, people noticed. My name began appearing on acknowledgement pages. Then came the first big break. A debut novel I edited hit the bestseller list. I cried when I saw my name printed inside, not because of pride, but because for the first time, I felt visible. Years passed. I rose through the ranks, became known as the woman who could turn messy drafts into masterpieces. Eventually, I founded my own small literary agency. At first, it was just me and a laptop on a rickety desk, but soon, talented writers sought me out. Money followed, success followed, stability followed, and yet, I never told my parents. Whenever they called, rarely, I kept my answers vague. I'm managing. Work's okay. I'm getting by. Maybe I wanted them to think I was still the girl they dismissed, so that one day when the truth came out, it would cut deeper. Or maybe, deep down, I was still that trembling teenager craving their validation. It happened years later. My parents showed up unexpectedly at my office building. I saw them through the glass doors, older, grayer, but still carrying that same air of criticism. I stepped out of the elevator, heels clicking against the marble floor. They froze. "This is where you work?" my mother asked, eyes scanning the gold-plated agency name, Aria Literary Group. "Yes," I said smoothly. "Care to come in?" I led them through the sleek lobby, walls lined with framed book covers, shelves stacked with awards. My staff greeted me warmly. "Morning, Aria." They noticed. In my private office, the city skyline glittered behind glass. A Persian rug covered the floor. On the mahogany desk sat a photo of me with Maya Kapoor, her arm around my shoulder. My father looked around, frowning. "You work for this company?" I smiled slowly. "No, Baba. I own it." Silence. My mother's dupatta slipped from her hand. My father's jaw clenched, then loosened. "I thought—" His voice trailed off. "You thought I'd fail, that I'd crawl back, begging for that room you rented out from under me." Their eyes flickered with shame, then defensiveness. "We needed money," my mother whispered. "And I needed parents," I shot back, my voice steady. For a long moment, none of us spoke. The ticking clock was the only sound. Finally, I leaned back in my chair. "You asked me to find somewhere else. I did. I found this. I built this." Their faces crumpled, not from anger, but from the dawning realization of what they'd lost. Years of my life, milestones they never witnessed, victories they never celebrated. And I savored their silence. They came to me again the next week. This time, they didn't walk into my office with arrogance. They walked in with hesitation, almost pleading. My father cleared his throat. "We need help. The house repairs, the bills." For a moment, the old bitterness flared in me. "The house you once told me wasn't mine?" But I steadied my voice. "I'll help, but only under conditions." Their eyes widened. "First, Baba, you always wanted to start that little furniture workshop, remember? The one you shelved because of money? I'll fund it. But only if you run it with pride, not excuses." He blinked, stunned. "Ami, you have to stop living through comparisons. No more gossiping about whose child is doing better. Heal your own wounds instead of measuring mine." Her lips trembled. "And third, you both need to apologize. Not to me, to yourselves. For choosing fear and money over love. For forgetting your daughter was never a burden." Silence. Then, slowly, my father's eyes glistened. My mother looked away, ashamed. "It wasn't revenge I wanted. It was repair. But on my terms." They nodded. And for the first time in years, I felt the balance shift. I wasn't the discarded child anymore. I was the woman at the table, making the rules. Over the months, I saw small changes. My father, once bitter and rigid, began carving wood in his workshop, his hands steady, his face lighter. My mother called less to criticize and more to ask genuine questions. It wasn't perfect. Old habits die slowly, but it was something. One evening, I sat alone in my office watching the sunset bleed across the city skyline. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out my grandmother's locket. The metal was worn now, but the words still echoed. Home is what you build with your own two hands. I smiled. She had been right all along. My parents once rented out my bedroom, as if walls and ceilings could define me. But in losing that space, I found a greater one, a life that no one could evict me from. I fastened the locket around my neck, letting it rest against my collarbone like armor, and in that moment, I knew. I wasn't just someone who found somewhere else. I had built everywhere.